Welcome to Beyond the Numbers, the podcast where we take the stress out of business finance and break down the numbers in a way that actually makes sense. Today we're talking about something that keeps business owners up at night: cash flow anxiety. You know that feeling when payday is approaching, bills are due, and you're wondering if there will be enough cash in the bank. You're not alone. Today I'm going to walk you through some practical steps to take control of your cash, avoid those nasty surprises, and stop that constant money stress. First, let's acknowledge that cash flow anxiety is real. It's one of the biggest financial stresses for business owners. But why does it happen? Common traps that tend to lead to cash flow stress are not having a financial buffer, so actually living month to month with no safety net. Another one's unpredictable income. So you might have feast or famine revenue cycles where some months are absolutely booming and others are slow. Another impact can be late payments from customers. So you're owed money, but you don't know when it's actually going to hit your bank account. A really common one as well is actually when people overspend based on their bank account. So instead of planning based on their future cash flow, you're looking at the bank and making decisions based on the money that's sat in there. And also a lack of visibility, so not knowing what's coming in and what's going out. So no cash flow forecast that's been built and looked at. So decisions are really being made in the moment without looking ahead. And this can have an impact of surprise tax bills, VAT, PAYE, corporation tax. So if you're not setting money aside, these really hit hard. So a business that I worked with once had a fantastic quarter, but they weren't tracking their outgoings. They spent far too much and then the VAT bill came. So cash flow anxiety isn't about how much money you make, it's about how well you manage it. So how do we manage it? How do we regain control of the cash flow? So a simple framework I tend to use with some of our clients is to get visibility first. So track your incomings and your outgoings properly. Use a software like Xero or even a spreadsheet. Start by categorizing your expenses. Which expenses are fixed so they don't move? They're the same month in, month out. And what costs are variable? So these perhaps alter dependent on your sales. And then look at the other costs that perhaps creep up unexpectedly. And the next step really is to understand the break-even point. So how much do you need to bring in each month to stay afloat? So let's look through an example on the flip chart. So say we have monthly fixed costs of £5,000. This includes everything from rent, salaries and insurance on a monthly basis. Now what we've got to try and work out is what the gross profit is per sale. So we need to look at what our sales price of each item is. So say it's £100 and we know that we've got variable costs, so the costs that are directly influenced by those sales of, say, £40. So this means we have a gross profit per item of £60. So to work out our gross profit margin, we need to take that £5,000 and divide it by 60, which gives us our total number that we need to sell, which is 84. So step 2, this is to have a cash buffer. We want to aim for at least 3 months of operating costs. Now this can be a really good rule of thumb. Start with a mini goal though. So maybe start saving up towards at least 1 month's worth of expenses to start with. This buffer just stops those cash flow dips turning into full-blown crisis or very expensive borrowings. And then step 3 is just checking in more often. So maybe having a Friday money check-in, setting a weekly cash flow review and looking at what's due next week, next month, and next quarter, and adjusting your spending and invoicing accordingly. Now, once you're kind of forecasting on a more frequent basis, you're then able to look at the month by month to see whether there are any dips that you need to be concerned about. A client of mine started doing this 10-minute Friday money check-in every week. And just by regularly reviewing their cash flow, they went from constant money stress to knowing exactly where they stand. So when you have the visibility, cash flow stops being scary. It's because it becomes something we can plan for. So do you want to know one of the best ways to reduce cash flow stress? It's to build predictable income streams. And one of the easiest ways to do that is with subscription income. And why does subscription income help cash flow? It's because getting steady income instead of those feast or famine cycles, that reliable recurring revenue, it means it's easier to plan financially. And it's less reliance on one-off sales, so you're not having to start from zero each month. A service-based business that I worked with started to introduce a monthly membership option for clients instead of just relying on those one-off sales. And within 6 months, they had a reliable baseline income that covered their fixed costs, reducing those cash flow worries massively. So in effect, subscription income gives you that breathing room. You can focus on growth instead of chasing money. So I want to go through some different subscription models. There's loads of different ways to get recurring revenue. An initial one is a sunk money consumable. Think about something like Nespresso. You have to buy the initial Nespresso machine, and then you're required to buy the pods that fit in that machine. It means you're going to be buying those on a more frequent basis, something that was a consumable. And also subscriptions are great. Think about the 3-month subscriptions to apps such as Calm or even to a magazine. And you can also get something called a sunk money subscription as well. So you invest upfront, but you're also paying for an ongoing subscription. So these are things like the National Rail Card are great examples of this, a mobile phone where you pay upfront for a handset, and also Auto-Renewal subscriptions are even better because they keep rolling on, so you don't have to worry about getting someone to sign up for another 3-month subscription or 12-month subscription. They're just there until you tell them to turn them off, and a great example of these are things like cloud storage. And then the last one I wanted to touch on are the long-term contracts. These are the contracts where we're creating and saying that we're going to do a service for a client for a longer period of time. Bev, it's not something typical in our industry. This is something that I hear quite a lot. My industry naturally doesn't lend itself to recurring revenue. It's not something that we're used to do. Quite a few years ago, we would never expected things like beauty products, like foundations, or perhaps flowers to be on a subscription basis. These are things that are starting to shift and would definitely have never been considered normal in those industries. So there are so many different ways that you can look at creating recurring revenue. And I want to touch on a few more. So maybe think about simplifying things. So if your customer knows that they're going to need your service regularly, start establishing a service contract which simplifies their life by eliminating the need for them to remember. They don't even need to call you to perform the service. Another great example are front-of-line revenues. We're all used to fast track pass for a fast track to get to the front of the queue for the roller coaster. Companies are doing things like this as well now. So think of Salesforce.com. They use the basic levels of support, means that someone will get back to you with your query within 2 days. However, if you want a faster response, you can subscribe to a monthly service plan, the Premier package, which means that you actually get a 1-hour turnaround time. And then the last model is the consumable model. So we now know that we can all buy razors on a consumable model. Life's too short to worry about mundane tasks like remembering to pick up nappies or razor blades. The whole thing here is subscribe and then you'll never run out. So really start thinking about what industry you're in and which of these recurring revenues may apply best for you. Next episode is about pricing mistakes and how these are damaging your company.